All right, everybody, welcome back to the Noah podcast. I'm Noah, and I'm joined by a good friend of mine. On this podcast, we dive deep into movement, health, mindset, and the power of community. And this one is kind of a little bit of everything, and I'm really excited about it. Um, Today, I'm joined by a good friend, old friend of mine. I've met him about 5 years ago at the Wim Hof Method Certified Instructor's Master Training. And it was 5 years ago, almost exactly. And over that time, I've had the privilege of watching Eric grow into this amazing individual doing something really unique and beautiful for humans, which is another reason why I'm having you on this podcast. And there's so much that I want to talk to you about. So I hope we can fit it in. If we don't fit it into this one podcast, that's fine. Maybe we do it again if you have a good time.
Awesome.
But first, I just want to say thank you, Eric, for joining me. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Nice. Well, I'm also very happy, and this podcast is turning out to be pretty cool because I'm having amazing people on it like you, and I hope that the
Mm.
individuals watching or listening also get that vibe. I'm gonna jump right into it because you are my, I could call it my barefoot inspiration. Uh, when we met in 2020, I was like, "Oh, this guy is crazy. He's walking around barefoot." And then I came to visit you in Spain, and you showed me your your Nike shoes. And at that time, I was still, I think, on contract with Nike, and then I looked at how you were actually wearing them. You had the bottoms cut out, but you had this like whole scientific thing on these shoes to look like a normal human being, but you're far from it. Um, so you got into barefoot walking and living, and I want to know how. Like, was there someone who inspired you, or was it just like a calling?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was a gradual process, really. I think, I mean, there's a lot of ways I could tell this story, but we'll go with the sort of medium version. So when I moved to Spain, that was about 14 years ago. I started working as a shepherd. I was living in the mountains and just spent pretty much all day, every day outside. This is part of a long process of me of just getting in touch with who I am,
When
really.
you when
Like
you say when you say shepherd, do you actually mean like
I mean
moving
a
an
shepherd. Yeah,
moving
yeah.
animals in the
Yeah, making
mountains?
cheese, taking care of sheep. Yeah, yeah.
That actually exists, people.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the States and went to university and was around a lot of people on a pretty sort of conventional life path, and it never really felt right to me. And after I graduated, I just started traveling and spending as much time in nature as possible. I went to Alaska and a lot of different places, and part of that was, yeah, I was coming here to Spain, and I found work as a shepherd, and it was just I felt this really strong calling that I couldn't really articulate at the time of just I just need to be outside. I need to be outside. I need to be in contact with nature as much as possible. And while I was there, I started trail running, which is something I'd never even considered before. Like I didn't even know it was a thing, but it was just, you have to find the sheep and it's getting dark and well, running's faster than walking. So, just start doing it. And after like a few weeks, it was like, wow, this is actually kind of nice. Like maybe I'll just go for a run rather than, having it be like specific to looking for sheep. And gradually got into it that way. And there's a big culture here of pretty much any endurance sport in Basque Country is popular. So like triathlons, running, swimming, people just love it. And very quickly I kind of got into the scene a little bit, started doing local races. And and for me, it's always been about connecting with nature and connecting with myself through that connection to nature, right? And so for me, it's just a natural progression of like, well, if I want to be connected to nature, I want to be in beautiful spaces. Like, why am I wearing these big padded things on my feet? Like, why don't I just feel the ground, you know? Um, and obviously, like it's maybe it sounds nice, but then actually putting that into practice, especially like trail running through thorns, it's like it takes some time to adapt, you know?
So painful.
Um,
I know in the
yeah,
beginning when I took my shoes off, I couldn't even walk over a stick, you know?
yeah,
Like you feel everything and everything is super intense. A rock feels like it's gonna kill you.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And actually, that's part of the reason why it's useful, right? Is because I mean, I'm sure you know, but in the running world, the most common thing by far is to get injured from overtraining. And people, I don't know what it is about running, it just really attracts this sort of obsessive personality of just like put the numbers in and go. Like my
My
leg's
watch
broken,
says
but I
it's
don't
time to
care.
go.
Like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like I think there is value to that. It's not I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's like it does have its limitations, definitely, and it makes people prone to injury. And if you're wearing a big padded thing on your feet that's just dulling all of the information you're receiving from the world around you, then it makes it easy to shut off the inner warning signs that would otherwise be telling you like, hey, maybe your form isn't quite correct here. Maybe your stride is too long. And when you're barefoot, you get very clear information. Like if you're taking
Always.
big bounding strides, landing on pointy rocks, like you're going to stop doing that after about 3 steps. You're going to be like, okay, I got to take smaller steps. They're going to have to be lighter and quicker. I can't be putting 100% of my weight on every step. I need to be doing it much more gently and perceiving the ground before I give my weight to it. And so on just like a very practical level, it's a good way to improve your form, to prevent injury, to build strength and all the fine muscles that help you stay in balance and prevent injury basically. But also it paves the way to something which to me is much more interesting, which is the whole sort of mindfulness aspect of it, and especially when you're out in the mountains running on trails and like in a beautiful natural environment, running can be a very good way to meditate, basically, to connect with a deeper understanding of, who am I and like what is my place in the world. Um, and for me, seated silent meditation has never really been my thing. Like I do it sometimes and I like it in small doses. But I feel like my base level is just like I've got too much energy for that. Like it feels like fighting a wild animal. It's like why would I do this? It's not necessary. Like I can go for a barefoot run. I can get to a very similar state. You're breathing, the rhythmic movement. It's like massaging your nervous system and just allowing you to get into a different way of relating to yourself. And so for me, the barefoot thing is really, at this point, it's about helping me to heighten my awareness and to enter into a flow state that brings me into closer connection with the environment that I'm in and with myself.
That's pretty well put. I agree 100%. When I started, especially because you're so aware and you feel everything in the beginning, I remember like when I would go for a run with shoes, I was just running and looking around and like thoughts were coming in and bouncing around and like, oh, I actually shouldn't be running right now. I have like three other things I need to be doing right now. And then when I took off my shoes, it was actual peace and quiet because I had to look where I was going. I was looking at the ground and a few steps in front of me. I was really focused and I was there in the moment the whole time because I had to
Yeah.
be. And
Yeah.
it's so meditative. Like that's what meditation is. You're supposed to bring or form some forms of meditation. You're like we're bringing
Mm.
ourselves to into our senses in many ways, and then our senses can help bring us to this moment.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of people use running for meditation. Like I was a part of a round table the other day, and one of the women, a part of the round table, also was like, "Yeah, running is my meditation." And then 2 days later, I went for a run wearing my shoes, and I was like thinking about everything else other than the run, you know? And so
Yeah.
I think that barefoot aspect does add a big thing. You also said something about injury prevention.
Hmm.
Uh, this is first hand basis. I was just maybe 6 months after I met you, I was starting to get into this barefoot world.
Yeah.
And I bought these like the socks that you can wear with like a protection
The
underneath,
little rubber protection, yeah.
rubber
Yeah.
protection on the bottom. And I was visiting my business partner in Ireland where we do our retreats, and um, he was like, "Let's go for a run. We're gonna go scout our location for next winter." And he was wearing Hoka's, and I was wearing my socks, sock shoes, I guess they're called. And he's like, "Sure, you want to do that? It's rocky and dangerous out there. We're going for a trail run." I was like, "I think I'm gonna be good." And on the way down, he twisted his ankle because he was this high off the ground, hit a
Yeah.
rock, twisted his ankle, and we had to walk. It took us an hour longer to get back because he was on my shoulder limping. And he was like, "You know what? Maybe you've got something." Because when you're barefoot, you're so connected, like you said. It's so beautiful. And
Hmm.
now, I mean, when we met at the Wim Hof event, getting our certification, the end of our certification, one of the things we have to do is hike up the mountain, just like the participants in the Wim Hof retreats or some of our retreats.
Yeah.
Um, and you everyone else was shirtless. Everyone was shirtless. Some people had gloves on. A lot of people didn't have gloves on, but you were shirtless and you were wearing a Speedo, I believe. It was, I think I still remember, it was purple and green. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I,
And barefoot. And
yeah.
the hike was predicted to be between 3 and 4 hours, and the temperatures were supposed to be between zero at the base up down to minus 10 or 12 with winds. And I look at
Yeah.
this guy's like, are you? And everyone, even the instructors taking us on this trip, were like,
Yeah.
"Eric, what are you doing?" And you're like, "I'm good." Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. That was a big moment for me.
Was that your first one?
I mean, I had tried a little bit before, but literally like 20 minutes, and that was it. I had no idea how it was going to turn out, but basically, like, I showed up there like very, very driven, very motivated, and in my mind, I'd been preparing for months, in the sense that I was like, okay, I'm going to like the mecca of cold exposure. I'm going to be with like the most experienced people in the world. Like I need to get everything I can out of this. And when I got there, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, like there's one guy who like he'd flown in from India. He had literally never seen ice before in his entire life. Which is, I mean, it's awesome. It's amazing, but it was a very different scene than what I had imagined. There's people from all over the world, really diverse, interesting. But it definitely didn't have this like high performance focus that I had imagined. It was much more about like bringing everyone together and having a good time and yeah, like having some challenges and growing, but also just like hanging out and talking and whatever. And I was not prepared for that. I was like, no, like like I need a serious challenge. I need to push myself to the limits of what's possible. I need to figure out a way to get something out of this
You're a
experience
man
for
on a
me.
mission.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And so, I mean, I spoke with the instructor with Leo, and he was really good about it. He's like, "Man, if you think you can, like, I'll let you try, and it's not a problem. But you need to promise me that if you start losing sensation in your toes, you're gonna stop because like that's the beginning of frostbite. So you need to guarantee that there's gonna be you're gonna be aware, you're gonna take care of yourself, and we'll just do it like that. So like okay, and I mean,
Pretty cool of him because he was, that's at an official event with instructors and stuff. They're kind of liable for us. And so
yeah,
I could
yeah, yeah, for
imagine
sure,
someone working for a big company like that saying, "No, you're not allowed or you're not coming." Like I think that's
definitely,
pretty cool that you were allowed to. I liked
definitely,
watching
yeah,
it. Kept my mind off of how cold I was.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, for me, it was 99% mental. It's really it's about breath, it's about visualization, it's about some kind of like internal alchemy that just made it happen. And my I don't know how to say this. I mean, I've studied different forms of yoga and meditation and tantric practices, and I think in many Eastern traditions there is some sort of there's a pretty deep understanding of like body mind connection and how those things work together, and I would say it's pretty reasonable to think that the Wim Hof method really has its basis in Tumo, from Tibet.
Yeah.
Wim definitely spent time in that region, and he was really into yoga, and he I don't know like if he went and studied at a Tumo monastery or he just sort of like saw the vibe and got inspired, but like something definitely happened there. And I mean, these traditions are hundreds, if not thousands of years old. And so I definitely don't want to pretend like I'm inventing anything new, but with very little formal training, somehow I just kind of had the puzzle pieces together. And then what I find is when you put yourself in a situation where there's very little room for error, like you learn very, very quickly. And that's something that I apply in a lot of areas in my life, and it's oftentimes it can seem extreme. And I mean, extreme is relative, but I guess I'll
Definitely.
just say like the physical danger, like real tangible physical danger is you have to know your limits. Obviously, you don't want to die.
But
You
we
don't
have
want to
to
get
find our
injured or
limits.
maimed, but you have to be able to put yourself in a situation where there's real world consequences if you do it wrong.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're going to learn 1,000 times faster than just sitting on the floor and meditating.
Yeah, man.
So
Well,
so to me that no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I know people here in Berlin that their limit is when the windows open in the wintertime and they're sitting at the kitchen table and they're like, where's my scarf? Like that's a true
Yeah.
limit for them, but it's
Yeah.
actually not. It's just like you said, this 99% mental thing that
Hmm.
we need to get over. And it's
Yeah.
uh, I, I hope that millions of people watch these types of podcasts, and I know that it's out there because I don't know if it's the same for you in Spain, but here in Berlin, like at the lake, it's on the weekends, it's like a standing rotation of people getting into the water, and it like over the
Really?
past 5 years since
Mm.
I've gotten into it, because I hated the cold before. I still kind of hate the cold, but anyways, like I do it because it helps me feel stronger.
Hmm.
But I was always going in on the beach side, and on the other side of our lake is like a stony entrance to the water. And first year, maybe one person, two people every now and then would come, and now like every year it's progressive and progressive. And I think that's so amazing, and it's because of people. It's getting around, and people like us are talking about it. People like Wim are talking about it, and all the celebrities are getting into the cold water now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and I,
happening.
I think I think it's important to like to talk to those people who are debating whether or not to put on a scarf, like that's legitimate as well.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, whether it's the cold or heat or like climbing trees or whatever it is, um, that's kind of my world and that's what I need. That's where my growth happens.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, a lot of stuff that you see on like YouTube or social media, it pushes us to do more extreme things that sort of grab people's attention. You have like half a second to grab someone's attention, and if you want to transmit any kind of message, like there has to be this like
Catch, hook, line,
this
and sinker.
very, yeah, and it's very visceral, it's very primitive, and like if it's just someone like debating whether or not to put on a scarf, like no one's going to watch that video. So what I mean is like
Unless you make it
there's multiple
comical.
aspects. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's someone out there who could make it happen. I'm not good enough to make that happen. And so what I want to say is like, with there's the aspect of your personality and your upbringing and just kind of like if you're drawn to more extreme practices or not. Then there's training and like over time things become easier and like maybe 30 seconds in an ice bath once was very difficult and now it's 30 minutes, or whatever it is. Um, but then there's another aspect of well of just like what portion of your life gets put out there on social media, whatever. And all of these things come together to oftentimes make the things that I do seem, I think, less accessible than they actually are. And I think it's you have to establish yourself as like, no, I can do these things. I put in the time, I've put in the effort. Like I'm able to walk up the mountain barefoot in the snow. Like I can do that. But that doesn't mean I mean, at my workshops, retreats, therapy, all this stuff, I'm working with people from like totally different walks of life, people who are in their 70s, people who are in their 20s, people who are like high performance athletes, people who have basically been sedentary for the past 20 years of their lives. And it's not about like following a single path. It's finding like where do I feel challenged? Where is my room for growth? And how can I push myself in a way that's sustainable? That's not just gonna just say like, fuck it, I'm gonna go and just like getting yourself injured.
Yeah.
Right? It's being gentle with yourself and defining like where are my limits and where's my room for growth. And that's scalable to people of any age, any background, like any level of expertise.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to say that because oftentimes that message gets lost, and I
Totally.
really
People.
enjoy working with people who are like really gung-ho, adventurous, just going for it. And I also really like working with people who have like, yeah, in their 70s and never even gone swimming in the ocean in Spain in the summer because it's too cold for them. And when you can get that person into an ice bath, like that's amazing, you
Yeah.
know.
And they always have the most amazing realization because the people that are always doing crazy things, they're like, oh, I could do one more crazy thing. Whereas
Yeah,
someone who gets into the cold, that's like you just said, never been in cold water before, scared because it's been ingrained in their brain and culture for 100 years. Their grandparents told their kids to put on jackets, you're going to get sick, those kinds of things. It's ingrained in
hmm
the people. And when they
yeah,
get into this cold water, it's like, oh my gosh, this is, it's a life changing experience. And that's
yeah,
so beautiful. So beautiful.
yeah.
I want to talk about this theme, high performance, because
Hmm,
for me, I am a high performance athlete. And then I
hmm,
met you. And I'm like,
hmm.
motherfucker, I'm not a high performance anything. I am a little baby. And like I when I talk to my clients, that's always about like you always explain, especially in marathon running or half marathon or whatever, running in general, there's always someone better unless you're Elliot Kipchoge. And then eventually in your career, there's always going to be someone better. Always. And if you're
Yeah,
not the best person, you just have to realize that it's all about yourself and competing
yeah,
with yourself. Um,
yeah.
and for me, I realized that as well with you because, I mean, in my past, before I met you, I ran with friends across the desert. I did a swam from Germany to Denmark with friends, and then I was like, okay, I am an extreme athlete, and then like I get humbled by an amazing guy like you, and I want to know, okay, high performance. How are you starting to incorporate these practices, breath work, ice bath, barefoot, being in nature? I see you like climbing trees, like just wearing shorts as well.
Hmm.
When I hug a tree, I have scratches on my arms. It's, I want to know how, like, can you break it down for someone like me or someone who would have nothing to do with these types of things because it seems so unrelatable?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to talk about it. For me, mind and body are like two versions of the same thing, and culturally we've divided them as though they were different. It's
Yeah.
mind versus body or whatever. And I think I mean, there's no scientific evidence for that, and it's like a fantasy of some French aristocrat 400 years ago who's like, I think, therefore I am, Rene Descartes. And like we took this as our motto for as our culture, and if you look at, AI, for example, as like the next iteration of that form of thinking. It's like just what we call conscious irrational thought is a very specific way of using the mind. And it's useful, it has its uses, but the body has its own intelligence as well that evolved hundreds of millions of years before the brain ever did. And so for me, the sort of general frame around everything I do is trying to connect with myself more deeply and understand what my body actually needs. And I find when I push at my limits in different ways, I get very clear messages about what my body needs.
Like
Um,
what?
so, the main tools I use in the realm of like physical performance, I use heat, cold, breath, strength, mobility, speed, stamina, Nutrition within that would be, what you eat, but also what you don't eat, doing fasting, intermittent fasting. Play around also with hydration and, when you drink, how much you drink, things like that, especially because when you go to Africa and it's like, it's hot and it's dry and you basically can't bring very much water with you. Um, and also a big part of it is the psychedelics as well, the plant medicine and really connecting with deeper levels of consciousness and getting just like a more instinctive understanding of what the body needs.
So
So there's like a lot of different factors there, right? And
yeah,
it can be very complicated to work on them all at the same time. It's like, okay, I want to be stronger and faster, but I also want to have more stamina while I'm eating less and drinking less. Like it's not easy, you know? So you've got to me, like there isn't enough scientific information as far as I know to coordinate all of that scientifically. I don't have access to the tools or the tests necessary. Even if those numbers did exist, I wouldn't know what they were for me. So for me, the quickest path, the best path, and the most interesting path is trying to develop constantly my inner awareness, like understanding what are the signals my body's sending me and how do I need to respond to that.
yeah,
So I like to give myself like challenges of say like run an ultra marathon or persistence hunting in the Kalahari or whatever it is, and it's a way to sort of organize my training around that. And basically, I don't like most people. I don't have as much time as I would like to train, and so I need to be a little more systematic about it. And what I do is every week, say, I'll test myself a bit in the closest environment I can get to whatever event that's going to be, and I see what's getting tired first. Is it this muscle? Is it that muscle? Is it my heart rate is going up? Is it, I'm getting hungry or I'm getting thirsty, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, that's my sign of the thing to work on for the next week or 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever it is. And then I go back and test myself again and see if it's something else,
yeah.
And I think doing things like, like movement snacks, like just moving throughout the day. Mm, I don't know if you remember in the farm, but I've got like the living area and the outside area, and in between, I've got a bunch of stuff to play with.
It's
There's
been
like
a long
ropes
time since
and
I've been there.
yeah,
The last time
it's
I was
probably
there,
changed quite a bit.
we
Yeah,
you were putting up limestone on the walls or
yeah, okay,
calcium.
okay,
I'm not sure. I don't remember
yeah,
exactly what it
yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah,
There
yeah,
wasn't much to it back then.
yeah. It's still pretty simple. It's still
Yeah,
pretty simple, but I've got a nice playground sort of in the middle. And basically, every time I go through there, I do something,
yeah,
lift something heavy or do like jump around or hang off of something, whatever. It's like keeping the body active throughout the day and playing around with different objectives. I honestly I like to set myself impossible goals of just like, I want to run an ultra marathon and also be able to lift my partner up over my head and like do acrobatics, which
yeah,
are like two completely different skill sets, different types of muscle, different nutrition. Like it's impossible, but it's like it's really fun to try.
yeah,
So, you know, and it's just like creating these little puzzles for myself of like, how can I fit this into my life? I'm a dad, I'm a therapist, I'm working with clients, I'm like developing websites, I'm, all of this other stuff. It's like, how can I live the richest, fullest life possible? And for me, a huge part of that is staying healthy and active and connected to my body. And so by giving myself these challenges that I know are impossible, it's it's just it's just like setting a framework around the playground. It's like, okay, this is your playground, have fun here, but this is like more or less where you're going. So just like experiment, try this, try that, try a million different things. But not everything, right? It's
yeah,
like within a period of 6 months or a year, it's like I'm working toward this and I'm going
yeah.
to try and be creative and figure out a way to make it work, but I'm working towards this goal,
I,
and then the variety there also helps keeping me kind of flexible in terms of like my identity. Like I don't consider myself an ultra runner or a tree climber or anything else. Like I'm a human. I like to
you're
move. I like
human.
to learn and that's that.
But so I guess what I really am interested in hearing, because I am going on this journey myself of
Mm,
getting to know myself.
hmm
My upbringing has always been in athletics and playing soccer, swimming, and performance based.
hmm
Uh,
Yeah.
and maybe it's because I didn't have the right coaches or I didn't have the right um, realization at the right time. But for
Mm,
me, it was always about pushing through no matter what my mind says, no matter what my body says, push through, push through, push through. And then eventually either I burn out or I get sick or I get hurt, you know?
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I have developed a very strong mind. I've been able to push through a lot of things, but
Hmm.
through that, I've disconnected my mind and body because I've lived this mind over body
Hmm.
narrative for
Yeah.
now 34 years,
Yeah.
and or maybe 30 because I've been working on it for 4 or 5 years. But anyways, my what I want to know, because I had a woman on the podcast uh, not too long ago, and she was talking about her connection to her body in a completely different way, and
Hmm.
it's for me it makes no sense, and I'm sure I'm not the only person.
Hmm.
So I want to know
Yeah.
what are like if I'm training for something or if I'm doing intermittent fasting, how do I know it's too much? What is the signs and things that I should be looking for inside of myself rather than
Hmm.
for me with clients and training,
Hmm.
it's focusing on numbers and calculations. Those
Hmm.
work up to a certain amount, but not
Hmm.
always. Using those plus what I want to hear from you could maybe be
Hmm.
this the answer I've been looking for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. A three-part answer. First is I can sell you my course. I've I've got an 8-week online course that like combines all of this stuff together, and we do it in cohorts. So it's like a 2-month course. Every 3 months we open up a cohort, small group of people go through it all together, and it's exactly about this. It's about like mind-body relationship through running and lifting and climbing and heat and cold and all the rest. Um, but I think I mean you're getting right at the heart of the issue. I think this is the most interesting part. And so yeah, I mean the course is there. You sign up. Everyone who's listening, sign up. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's great. It's
Sign up,
cheap.
everybody.
Do it.
Maybe Eric will have me as a guest and I'll talk about it and be one of his trial participants. But
Exactly.
I'm just
Exactly.
just putting something out there.
Yeah, so that's part one of the answer. Part two is the metrics are sensations and emotions. Like that's the language of the body. And there's a like you have to refine your understanding of like what does this discomfort mean? What does this pain mean? There's a fine line between something you can push through and something that, well, you can push through, but you'll get injured if you do, you know? And it's very difficult to put into words because it's a feeling, it's a sensation. You know, you can't say, well, when you have a lactate level of, 3.4, then it's, if you're constantly measuring that, okay, but
Yeah,
we don't know. So
exactly.
it's being aware, like in the moment, seeing how do I feel while I'm doing this? How do I feel afterward? How do I feel the next day? And for me, a very good rubric is like, if I don't feel more energized the next day, it was probably too much.
Okay.
You know, there are times, I mean, you have to do periodization as well, right? If you really want to like get
Exactly.
the most out of it, there will be times when it's okay. Yeah, you get exhausted, you recover, you get exhausted, you recover, and that's fine. But I think as like a general base building and discovery period, you want to feel the next day, you want to feel like you've got energy and you want to go again, you know? And I think if you do that very consistently over a long period of time, you're going to be building the strength and the awareness needed to then push yourself further and know how much is too much.
Okay.
So I think that's just in like very simple terms. I think that's a very good rubric, and that implies a different sort of emotional relationship to yourself, right? Which is subtler and it's even more difficult to measure. But it's kind of like, what's my inner dialogue? Is it David Goggins? It's just like, you little bitch, like get the fuck out there, go 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 go, like that will get you to a certain place, depending on how deep your need is to push yourself. Like, I mean, you can get to David Goggins level where you basically run until you're completely broken, and like, I don't know, you read his book. Actually, I read his book because you recommended it to me. But at the end of his writing of that book, I think he shrunk like 2 inches in height just because his muscles were so tight. He had compressed his spine, and it's like, that's a path. It's possible.
Not the
It
most
doesn't seem like a very good one to
longevity,
me.
longevity or is it path with
No,
the
definitely
long
not.
life path. But I
Definitely
guess
not.
you'll have enough money in the long run to repair most of the damage eventually,
Maybe, who knows?
if he
Who knows?
wants.
Yeah. But for me, what I find is like, I mean, one of my major sources of inspiration is the people in the Kalahari. So I go there a few times a year, run with
I'm
them,
so
hunt with
excited to
them,
hear about
live with
this.
them. Yeah. And what you see there is very aware, intelligent, and capable human beings who are just like humble and fun and lovely. And they're just having a good time. And they're running in, what is it? Say like 35, 38 degrees Celsius. Like it's hot, it's dry, it's not easy by any standards. And they're just smiling and, having a nice time. And when we were done, they like go and play with their kids and maybe have a little rest, maybe dance a little bit, maybe sing a little bit. It's like, life's good. They don't have any food to eat. They had to run for 10 hours to get dinner, but life's good. Why not have fun? Why not do some dancing? And it's this very sort of lighthearted, easy approach to life, which I think is what any child or any animal or any of our ancestors had. Um, that I think allows you to tap into a much deeper place of strength, right? So it's this funny paradox where like I think by trying to be too hard, we get into a very false idea of what it means to be an athlete or what it means to be a man, of like, it's a very sort of it's like a Hollywood vision of like, yeah, this big like Viking dude, whatever. And like that's fine. It's fun. Like I'll play around with that. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not sustainable in the long term. And ultimately, I think if you're literally talking about Vikings like going to battle and killing people, like that's probably the best way to do it. Like if you're just smiling and having fun, that's probably not a very efficient way to kill people. But if we're not talking about that, if we're talking about living a good life, if we're talking about running a little bit faster, running a little further, lifting a little more weight, I think you can probably go a lot further and get a lot more out of the experience when you're just having fun. When you're being creative, when you're being playful, you're hanging out with friends and you're just like, hey, like what if we do it like this? And what if we do that? And like before you know it, like you've increased your range of mobility and you're lifting heavier things than you were before and you're running faster and further and it's funner. And it's like it's a very underestimated source of strength, I think. And it's about, what is my relationship to myself? What are the patterns I learned about like what is necessary for growth or for improvement, and whether that's from your culture or for your family or just like your own personal thing you invented in your head. Like most of us have a pretty rigid program there where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I have to be judgmental, I have to be hard, I have to be organized, I have to go, go, go. Okay, that's one possibility. But it's also possible to just be playful and have fun and experiment, and think of running like it's like channeling your dancing. It's like, it's all this dancing energy, tons of fun. And like, by the way, like going out dancing all night is a great way to cross train for running ultra marathons. Like, you know, and it's like you take all that energy and you're moving all around your full body. It's like, okay, I'm just going to channel this and like run up the mountain,
So
you
for
know?
my next, when I gather my next running team, I need to go into Berghain, into the club here, and find the
Yeah.
people that went in on Thursday and come out on Sunday,
Definitely.
and
Those are going to
they're
be winning the next ultras, man, for sure.
for sure.
For sure.
Those
For sure.
people. I mean, I've have you ever been to Berghain or any clubs in Berlin?
No.
Oh
No,
my
no, I
gosh,
haven't.
man, it is a different world. I mean, it's not my scene. I think I
Yeah.
go there as a tourist in the city. I live here. I'm not a tourist
Yeah.
anymore, but going to those places, I'm in a different world.
Yeah.
It's actually really, really cool and super
Mm,
respectful, really beautiful people. So
mm.
maybe I do need to change my pattern, go in once and hand a sticker to someone and say, "Hey, let's go running one day."
Yeah, for
I'll
sure.
put techno in your ears while we're running if you want to.
There's huge overlap, man. A lot of, especially the original ultra runners, were all like major partiers. And they were like the original guys in the US at least who like started
It's
doing ultra marathons.
yeah,
They were like drug addicts, alcoholics, and they just like took all
crazy.
that energy, just like just go,
Took off. There's
you know.
this one of my partner's best friends.
Hmm.
When I met my partner, her best friend was one of those like drink, smoke, be in the club every weekend. And like when I went to the club once, I would leave, my snot was black and I'd get sick. I didn't take any drugs, I didn't really drink, but I got sick because that was such a hard stress on my body just
Yeah,
being there. And these
yeah,
people are living and they go to work on Monday and then they do it again on the next weekend. It's like this, it blew my mind because I was thinking as this health freak that you have to be
yeah,
healthy. You're not allowed to drink alcohol. You can't smoke. You shouldn't do these things. I'm not condoning it by any means,
yeah.
but in a way, they are training their bodies in a
Yeah.
completely different way. They're putting stresses on their bodies, and
Hmm. Yeah.
I can completely see it. Maybe I need to go talk to her and see if she wants to run an ultra with
Yeah.
me next year.
And I think this is, I mean, this is, it's a really important point because it points to how powerful it is, like how you're relating to the experience. Guaranteed, if you took any of those people out and you put them on a treadmill, say we're going to burn the exact same number of calories that you did last weekend, but you're going to do it on a treadmill, like in my office. There's no fucking way. Like they wouldn't get to like a tenth of the number of calories. There's no way.
They would give up
But
and they'd get sick or injured,
yeah,
even
yeah,
though their
exactly.
bodies can do it, but
Yeah.
the mind is set
Yeah.
up differently.
But you give them the context that they need. There's other people they're watching, there's interactions, there's stimulants, there's this whole sort of world around it. And it's like, yeah, just move for 48 hours straight. Like, why not? It's fun, you
All
know?
right.
And so I think it's like if we can take that as, there's a million other contexts, but take that just as like a simplified version of like the power of the mind,
Yeah.
you know, and not in the limited sense of just willpower and breaking through, but like the way I understand my reality, the way I understand my body and myself has a huge impact on the real world results that I'm going to see, And so like
Yeah.
create your own dance party in your mind, like find a
Yeah.
context, find a situation where like this is fun. I'm fucking loving this. Like this is amazing, and just cultivate that as much as you can. Like tap into your like 6-year-old self, like just going out into the forest and exploring, and like if you can tap into that and use that as your energy to train, like man, life is just so much better in a million ways.
Yes. So
You
there's
know?
something because time is running up on us. So
Yeah.
I have to hear about the Kalahari because that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you, and one of the main reasons why seeing your evolution over the past 5 years has made me so happy.
Mm.
And this, just seeing you talk about it a moment ago and the smile that just appeared on your face while you're talking about it is proof in the pudding that it's important to you and it's one of your main passions. And I want to know
Yeah.
first, how the hell did you even get in touch to go down there?
Yeah, just going for it, man. I mean, it's like ever since I was a little kid, I was fascinated with hunter-gatherers, and I've spent time in a lot of different places in the world, like looking. It's like this incessant search for like, okay, if the rat race isn't it, if
Yeah,
this society we're living in isn't it, like what is it,
yeah,
And exploring different spiritual paths, different psychological paths, but a big major focus for me has always been trying to find like real intact cultures where they're still living life the way we were evolved to live. And honestly, my conclusion is like that doesn't exist, or if it does exist in its pure form, like we're not going to find it. There might be some tribe in the middle of the Amazon somewhere, but they're going to kill you on sight. Like if they're still uncontacted, it's for a reason.
yeah,
So I don't want to pretend like the Kalahari is like this untouched paradise. It's definitely not. But there still are remnants of like who we are at our origin, and that's what I was looking for. And that's why I keep going back, and
yeah,
the project I've created there is trying to help them. It's not recreate, but it's like reinforce the elements of that are still there. So I went for multiple years, just like spending all the time and money that I could there, hiking around, running around, driving around, just trying to find people who are still doing persistence hunting. So like just a quick little aside, persistence hunting is just running an animal to exhaustion,
yeah,
basically. Like, and the idea is that this is at the essence of like our competitive advantage as a species. It's our ability to sweat, to run upright, having our Achilles tendons, the elasticity, like all these different factors that we evolved over time gave us a competitive advantage over other animals, which in short distances can run, 10 times faster than we can. But over the long haul, they get overheated, they get exhausted, and humans, in theory at least, can outrun them,
yeah.
And I've done it. I've been there. I've done it with
I
them.
saw
Um,
that and
it's
it's insane.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's crazy. I think I'm the only white person to have ever done it successfully. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, honestly, there's a lot of luck. Like I've done it a lot of times and not been successful. The times I've been successful twice, and there's a lot of hours, a lot of effort, and also luck. Like anyone who does hunting in any context,
yeah,
like
there's a lot of
30%
luck
kill
involved.
rate is very, very good.
Yeah,
Um, and But when you're like, if you're hunting with a gun, you're like the
You're hiding and you're
yeah,
waiting.
yeah, and the price you pay for not being successful is like you lost a bullet. You know, if you're running for 10 hours, the price you pay for not being successful is like,
Death.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this again, you know,
Yeah.
but I still didn't eat, so I guess I have to, you know. It's a very demanding experience. And for me, obviously there's the physical component. You know, there's no trails. You're running in the sand through thorn bushes at a speed that you don't choose, at a distance that you don't choose. The food and water you're carrying is just like whatever fits into your backpack. There's no shade. It, it's intense. It's
Yeah.
intense on a physical level. Like you need to train for it. Um, but for me, what's more interesting is the psychological component, where of again, like getting into this flow state, getting into a sense where like for me at least, like willpower will not get you very far there. Like you need to enter into some other realm where it's just like let the body move, let the legs move. Like I'm not in control here. Like the body's just going. And to the degree that I've been able to talk with them about this and understand sort of their perspective, there's a sense of I don't know, it's almost like the animal has like a magnet in it. You know, it's like what they say is like your soul has gone out of you, it's in the animal, and like your job is to go and recover your soul. Right? It's like there's just this force that's drawing you forward, and there's no obviously according to like our scientific understanding of human mind and body, like this doesn't really make sense. Like, no, you are by definition the center of your experience. Okay, but within that, it's possible to have the experience of not being the center of your experience. You know, and people
Yeah.
have out of body experiences, near death experiences, psychedelic experiences. Like, you know, whether we want to say this is another realm of reality or it's all explained within the brain and body, like who knows? But the point is, like, when you experience yourself in your rational mind as the center of things and you're just pushing and driving, like that's not going to get you there. You need to have the experience of being humble, being like surrendering to this force that's greater than yourself and letting that draw you forward. And when you can do that, you can successfully persistence hunt. You know, and that
Yeah.
that to me is like the essence of the value of the experience. Just on the one hand, just because it feels amazing, but on the other, because if you take it seriously, like this is the skill that allowed us to evolve as a species, then this esoteric realm of like out of body experiences, psychedelic experiences, all this stuff, like all of a sudden it's not esoteric anymore. All of a sudden it's at the essence of who we are as a species,
Mhm.
you know. And so we can kind of put aside the whole sort of modern Protestant idea of like this is bad and wrong and it's you know it's not rational so therefore it's bad. It's like wait a minute, maybe without this ability to connect to something bigger than ourselves and bigger than the rational mind, like maybe we wouldn't be here as a species. Maybe it's a fundamental part of who we are. And so in my work as a therapist and working like with people and their you know their issues and their traumas and all this stuff, this is like a fundamental part of the work. It's like learning to embrace that a connection with something beyond your rational understanding of who you are and the way the world works. And I find that, you know, if we're talking about the very limited goal of just like catching an animal, it works. But if we're talking about the more amorphous and to me more meaningful goal of like healing your wounds, becoming a better person, living a better life, it's also incredibly important. You know, and so a huge focus of the work that I do, whether it's physical training or, you know, more mental emotional therapy, it's like helping guide people to have a deeper relationship with this realm of whatever it is. Like I don't want to put a name on it. You know, I think
Yeah.
as soon as we put a name on it, we debase it. You know, so I mean, some people call it God or nature or Buddha or Jesus or whatever. Like to me, that's missing the point. It's like allowing yourself to surrender to this other realm that by definition we can't fully understand, and letting yourself be guided by that. And I think that's a path not just to persistence hunting or higher performance in a very limited sense. It's a path to living a better life. Yeah.
Hmm. That's really beautiful. And so you found those things over the past, let's say, 10 years or something, and it has changed your life to make it so that that's where you want to be guiding and living.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't want to put myself on a pedestal or pretend like I have everything figured out because I don't. Anyone who says they do, like, do not believe them. It doesn't exist. We're all in this together. We're all trying to figure it out, myself included, definitely. And at this stage, at this time in my life, like, yes, this is a major focus for me. It's a huge part of who I am and my growth as a human, as a therapist, as a trainer, as a father, as a partner. I just find again and again that this cultural impulse we have to understand everything, control everything, and make reality conform to the way we think it should be is not healthy. And
Mm.
it's the root of a lot of damage, both environmental and physical that we do to ourselves and emotional that we do to ourselves. Like it's when we can move past that and tap into this other way of relating to ourselves and relating to the world, like the the amount of things that change in life is incredible.
Of
It's
course,
incredible.
if things aren't
You
changing,
know.
or life kind of gets boring, and that's probably where we all go insane, anyways.
Yeah.
But at least
Yeah,
for
for
me,
sure.
that's I know. Being a dad as well, I was scared of this idea of like, school's coming. I have to have this schedule every single day for the next 15 years or something. Um, and the fear is real, and I respect it. But I'm
Hmm.
getting off topic, and I want to bring it back before we finish up.
Yeah.
So my like, just so that I can clear it up with the Kalahari, you went down there because you were interested and you were curious, and then it just happened, like, in happenstance, or how did you find the? Because I can't imagine that it's easy to find these amazing people.
No, no, definitely not. I mean, yeah, I showed up and started talking to people. And, English is the official language of Namibia and Botswana,
Oh, okay.
and South Africa. And so that definitely doesn't mean everyone there speaks English, but some people do. Um, and just kind of, the Kalahari Desert is huge. I mean, it's enormous. Um, and just started just exploring and being like, hey, like, do you know anyone who's still like persistence hunting? Like, have you ever been persistence hunting? And like, it's really tricky because there's a really strong profit motive. Like, they will say yes to whatever they think you want to hear. If you're like, hey, do you speak Chinese? They'll be like, oh yeah, of course. And or like, hey, like, have you ever seen a diamond? Oh yeah, of course, I've got one in my house. Like whatever. They're very eager to please, and they're going to tell you whatever they think you want to hear. So that makes it much more difficult.
Yeah.
So a lot of trial and error, going out hunting with people, realizing like this guy doesn't really know what he's doing, or like
Oh my
this isn't
gosh, I
really
can't
it,
even
you
imagine.
know. And I mean, it was a long process, like multiple years, a lot of time, a lot of money. But what I did honestly is I like kind of partitioned my life, and like I took it was basically a part-time job that paid pretty well, and said, okay, I'm just gonna dedicate like 20 hours a week to doing this thing, and 80% of the money I make, I'm gonna dedicate to the Kalahari. And it's just a commitment I'm making to myself. Like I have no idea if this is going to work out or not, but I don't want to die without having tried.
That's
Like
amazing.
I'm going to make it work, And so I just like kind of compartmentalized it in my mind. It's like, okay, X number of hours, X amount of money, like I can make this happen. Let's do it. And that's what I
Well,
did.
I'm so happy you did, because it's very interesting and it's really inspiring. And I hope that maybe I'll be able to go with you as well one day when I
Yeah,
have the
man.
time and the money. And I'm so happy to know you. And Eric, before we end this podcast, is there anything else you want to share? Where can I find you on the internet? Where can people message you? How does it
Yeah.
work? And let the people know what you got going
Yeah.
on.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. No, I really appreciate the conversation. And I don't know. I do a lot of different things and it keeps changing. So I think as far as websites, like I'll share the links. People can look in the show notes or whatever, but primalnature.eu is a good place to start. There's other websites with other stuff going on, but that's kind of the main thing. Um, on Instagram, it's existential.hormesis. And I think as a way to close out, I can maybe just explain sort of what that is really briefly, because
Yes.
it's one way at least to kind of sum up the full range of things that I do. So hormesis is, it's the biological concept that basically acute physiological stressors make you more resilient, right? So that's heat, cold, hunger, with breath, with movement. It's a very basic physiological principle that's been proven time and time again in many different contexts. It's still kind of considered fringe and not a lot of people know about it, but it's real, it's powerful, it works, and it feels amazing. And to me, the existential bit is coming from, well, studies of existential psychology and like a lifelong interest in like what is the meaning of all this and what the hell are we doing? And that ties into me the bit of the psychedelics, right? Where it's like that's a form of hormesis of acute physiological stress, not just on physical systems, but on mental systems as well. Like putting intense pressure on my understanding of who I am, of how the world works, of what reality is. And you have to do it in a context that's safe. You have to do it in a way that makes sense. You have to give yourself time to recover and make sense of all of it and apply it to your daily life. Like it's not just go out and go crazy, right? It's the same thing with the cold. If you go too hard, you're just going to get sick. If you have a plan, a program, a setup, it's going to make you much stronger, give you more energy, make your life better, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, like a big part of my mission is trying to recover the physical practices that are often seen as just kind of like social media stunts and putting them back in the rightful place as like essential to who we are as human beings. And at the same time, taking in the more, esoteric psychedelic experiences and saying like, no, this is a real fundamental part of who we are as human beings. We need to stop dividing ourselves into these random, ridiculous categories. And it's like to be a good human and live a good life, like go for runs, get cold, get hungry, get tired, take some psychedelics, like question yourself constantly and deeply and have fun doing it. Right. So
Yeah.
that's the 20-second version or 2-minute version or whatever of my
The
project.
elevator
You know,
speech. I love it. Thank you,
exactly.
Eric, so much. I think that we can have a full podcast on every single one of those little things because my mind is just going insane right now. I really
Yeah.
want to have you on again, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed
Awesome.
it as well. So thank you, everybody, for staying on and listening or watching wherever you're um, listening to this stuff. So I'll see you at the next one. Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you.